my goodness! Holy sh!
Well, hey there, folks, and welcome to episode 3 of the 76 Bronco Resurrection. In this episode, we're going to do some lift. Those of you that have been watching may have already realized, well, why did you go buy new shocks for if you're going to put a lift on it? Well, because we're not putting a suspension lift on it. That's right, we're doing a body lift. And yeah, I'll be the first to admit that body lifts can be very hack. As a matter of fact, my very first vehicle was a 73 Bronco, and I ended up putting a body lift on it. It was fine at first, but as the years progressed and I wheeled it a lot more, the body lift started to rock the body, and I had a system of chains and turnbuckles trying to keep the body from rocking. So I'm not doing that type of a body lift. I'm doing something a little more unusual. I'm going to actually go in and rebuild all the body mounts and bring them up. And then there won't be a block in there. It'll just be a raised up mount that's actually firmly attached to the frame. And I do have a new set of bushings. One of the good things, and particularly for these early Broncos, let's see if I can go through them. The extra body lift provides more space in here between the fender well. It opens it up to let more hot engine air out. One of the other benefits on an early Bronco is things are really tight in the transfer case area, cross member and whatnot, so that probably provides a little more room to work there. Gets the floor up and away from hot exhaust and headers. And on this particular one, it's, as you recall, this thing open. This does not have power brakes. I want to try to put a brake booster from a 5-liter Ford Explorer in here, and that extra body lift will give me some extra room between the brake booster and the valve cover of the engine. But the bigger issue might be, room between the steering column and whatnot. But anyway, what I'm going to do is pull the body off to do this. It could probably be done with the body on, but I think it's just going to be so much easier taking the body off that it'll be worth the effort to take the body off. There's 8 mounts on these, and I'm fully expecting, because I've run into this before with these old rusty Broncos, the rear 4 mounts, where the bushing mounts will actually be pretty rusty. So even without a body lift, those could probably stand to be rebuilt anyway. And it wouldn't surprise me if the front mounts are pretty rusty there too anyway. But besides the 8 bolts, let's go ahead and get started unhooking stuff to get this body lifted off there. If Ralphie will give me my work hat back. He's just adorable. He likes wearing my hat. What can I say? Let's just start at the back and move our way forward. Obviously, first thing should be pretty easy. Unplug the wiring harness where it jumps from the frame to the body. You can see where someone's added a little trailer wiring harness, which could come in useful if it weren't for the fact that it's mangled. License plate light. Let's see here, where's that plug? There. Fortunately for me at the moment anyway, there are no gas tanks underneath this, so I don't have to unhook those. So I don't think there's anything left back here. Okay, as for the transfer case shifter, as I already mentioned, it's kind of tight working in there underneath without a body lift, so my plan to get the body off is to just pull the shifter boot off and the shifter knob off the end, and I'll be picking up this body obviously with my loader, and hopefully I can be careful enough to just weasel the whole body off over the shifter. There's a good chance when I go to put the body back on, I'm going to have to cut this hole out larger anyway, because the body will be sitting up here and it'll need a larger hole for the shifter throw. But I'll deal with that later. Alright, Alright, moving forward a little bit more. Obviously you're going to have to unhook the transmission shifter. And looks like the wiring harness down in here. Obviously I have to unhook the steering shaft, but I'm going to wait to unhook that until the last thing after I get it rolled out of the shop and I'm ready to pick it up with the loader. Another thing that I'm just reminded of, looking at the wiring harness, got a speedometer cable too there I need to unhook. So try to get them unhooked without hurting yourself or the parts. Now that shaft running down to the transmission after the body lift, that's going to have to be extended anyway. Now I've already got the master cylinder out because it was going to need to be replaced anyway. These early Broncos have rubber flexible lines that run from the master cylinder down to the proportioning block. Obviously those aren't going to work and they're in pretty bad shape anyway, so I'll just do the old curled up metal line down to the proportioning block from the master cylinder. One. 2, there we go. Kind of should go without saying, but tie that speedometer cable up somewhere where it stays where you want it to stay during removal and replacement. You don't want it to get fallen in somewhere and get crushed or pinched when you put the body back on. One other thing I realized once I got underneath here, this is a dual tank model, so it's got all these lines running to that fuel selector that used to be mounted to the floor at one point. The fuel selector's seized up anyway, and I doubt that I'll ever have 2 tanks in it again. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for a tank yet. I do have the side mount tank that goes right underneath the driver. It's a plastic tank, so it shouldn't be rusty, but man, I really just prefer the rear mount tank. But I don't have a spare one of those sitting around, but and there's always, of course, the option of just plopping a fuel cell down in the back of the body. But I don't know yet. But at any rate, I got to get these lines unhooked, even though I'm not going to use them anyway. So these rubber lines are just hard and brittle. I'm probably just going to go ahead and cut them because, like I said, I won't be using them in the future anyway. Into the scrap you go. Emergency brake cable. When I was working on the rear brakes, I went ahead and cut all that stuff out of the back because you guys and gals that live in the Rust Belt know a vehicle this old, these things don't work anyway. And there's no point in trying to keep them going. It's kind of a pointless battle. So, get in here and get this. One other special thing about this vehicle I almost forgot. The transmission is hanging by the cowl here. That would have been a bit of a disaster if I'd have forgot that, so let's take care of that. One other nice thing about taking the body off, I think while I got the body off, I'm going to go ahead and just plop the engine in there too. It should be a lot easier than trying to fish it over the grill and down in there. A lot more room to work. So yeah, make the best of a situation that I can. See how far down this she drops. Shouldn't be too bad. The transfer case will hit the floor back there at some point. Wow, a lot more than I thought it would. I believe the only thing left is the steering shaft and actually unbolting the body itself. So it seems the bolt is seized in the actual body mount, not surprisingly. I'm going to have to take more drastic measures to get these apart. I guess it doesn't matter what I destroy because I'll be replacing everything, other than I want to keep the actual frame purchase intact because I'll need to use those as a measuring point. Alright, so I got the front 4 mounts out. I'm to the third set of mounts going, front to back. If these don't actually turn out, I'll just grind the heads off from up above. That's why I didn't have the passenger seat mounted yet. It's just going to be in my way. So unlike the driver's seat, the passenger seat is just stationary. It doesn't have sliders and all that. Let's find out what's going to happen here. Wow. Something went my way. Okay, last two, clear back here at the back. Looks like the heads are in pretty good shape. Ooh, how about that? That was easy. Okay, that'll work. So to pick the body up at front, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the hood hinge bolts. So I'm going to have to remove the hood. See how much of a disaster that'll turn into. These don't look like much, but these hoods are surprisingly heavy and very awkward, as any good-sized vehicle hood is. Up nice pristine paint either. There we go. Not pleasant, but not as bad as I thought it'd be. Everything's looking clear so far from what I'm seeing. I was wrong about putting the boards in there. I guess I should have had the straps a little further back in order to get them to pinch, get the door openings to pinch shut, but what's done is done. I don't think it's doing any damage. So. Back safe and secure in the shop. You know, it occurred to me as I was carting the body away, I never even looked at the shifter as I was pulling the body off, but it must have cleared okay, no problem. Here's what I was talking about these body mounting pieces on the frame rusting out. So there's one at least. That one over there doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't matter. I'll be taking this off completely and making a new one that's 3 inches higher. I'm betting once I get these ones knocked off, they will probably be rusted pretty bad. But maybe not. This Bronco's had quite a few surprises for me already. So yeah, I'll be building like a tower here, you know, kind of like these towers are. But I'll be putting it right here, and then when I redo these towers will be even taller. And then the front floor mounts are like outriggers on the frame. So I'll be building new ones of those. I might actually, depending on how rusty they are, once I get the body mount out of it if they're salvageable. I'll probably use most of it and just raise it up and run a gusset down. But I think that's enough for today. She's a hot one out there. All right, just got a bed, back at it today. Had commitments yesterday, so it's been 2 days now. Kind of occurred to me, I kind of knew I wanted to do the body lift on it. I just didn't know if I was going to do it after I got it running and driving. But once I did decide to do it and got the body off, it occurred to me it would have been a lot easier doing some of this other work I've already done. The brake lines, the rear differential and all that, but oh well. As you guys know, I'm kind of a cheap ass at times, and I'm willing to spend money where I think it's necessary. As you've seen in some of my other videos, I've spent money buying aftermarket axle shafts for my wheeling rigs, and I've dropped a pretty penny on my Mustang suspension components and the 6-speed. Here's what I'm doing to save money on this one. Yep, used steel. Nothing wrong with used steel. It still welds and fabricates just the same. This is an old Explorer frame. I think I should be able to cut enough chunks out of this to make my new body mounts work. And I kind of have to be a cheap ass because, as you've seen not long ago, I got that new big old 0-turn mower to pay for. I think I decided I'm going to start out with will probably be the easiest mounts, and that's going to be the third ones from the front. Initially, my plan was just to take the mount out completely and make a new mount, but I think what I'm really going to do is just cut it here all the way around and just build it up in that area. And when I do that, I'll just get rid of this hole in it, and that should add a little more strength too. Then I might move on. I think after doing the easiest one, I might move on to what I believe should be the hardest ones, which will be the very front ones. Mostly because this mount is welded on, because it's funny shape because it has to clear the steering box. On the other side, it's just riveted on. But I doubt I'm going to have time to get all those today. I'll probably just get the easy ones here. First thing I need to do is break out the new body bushings, mount them on there, and start taking some measurements. So I've marked out where my cut's going to be. When I make the part that's actually going to raise this whole thing 3 inches, I might actually make this little tab and fill that in, because the only thing that did was held the body mount in place while you bolted it up, which is not going to be applicable for these new body mounts anyway. So I just will take a little time, maybe make it a little stronger. I don't know, I haven't decided if I'll do that yet. We'll see. Cut the one side off for now, just in case I need to use the other side for some measurement references. So I'm going to make an adjustment to my plan. Instead of actually making the lifted piece of metal with this tab in it, I think I'm going to try to bend both of these tabs up and clean them all out with a grinder, and then I'll just put a piece of brass behind them and just weld them up. So change of plans for the steel I'm going to use on this mount anyway, because as you can see the wavy nature of how this mount was made. This is 3/16 here, and I'm going to use 1/4 inch in order to hit as much of that waviness as possible. I've got a 1/4 inch piece of army truck frame out here I'm going to cut up for that purpose. Kind of tacked in place. One caveat that I found to this, when I eyeball down this one, I'm sure the camera's not going to show it, there's a hole in the frame down there, and it's pretty well centered on this one. But this one, the mount was kind of pulled backwards just a little bit. Looks pretty well straight to me by my calibrated eyeball. I do think that kind of, I don't know, sticks up there where I might put some sort of a diagonal brace in here. Or I might not. I don't know. Even left like this, it's got to be better than a wobbly old lift block. Ralphie's learning how to weld, but he's not learning how to do it very safely. This is awful. My eyesight is really failing me when it comes to welding. I've seen a lot worse, and I'm sure it'll hold, but damn, idiots. So there's the finished project. Well, one of them anyway. God, those welds are just... Yeah, I'm not that bad of a welder. It's just my eyesight. I really should be getting glasses. And I think it'll hold. It'll be fine. It's just, boy, it just looks awful. I don't think I'm going to add any cross bracing here. It's going to be fine. Obviously, it's going to be way more stout than a wobbly lift block up there. And anything that does bend that over, the events that would lead to that happening would be a severe wreck or a very, very violent rollover, in which case I'm not going to be worried about these body mounts getting bent. So the welds on the other side are a little bit better, but that was a pretty low bar to try to beat anyway. All right, got 2 mounts done. I'm a quarter of the way there. Had to pull the front bumper off. I wasn't planning on using it anyway. With this 3-inch body lift I'm putting on, they look goofy with that big old gap, so I'm going to make my own bumper, but it was in my way of getting that body mount off, so it had to go anyway at some point. I was going to just go ahead and cut this whole mount off, but I've come up with a different idea. I'm not terribly proud of it, but I think it will work. I know it'll work. It won't be the strongest way or the most visually pleasing way to do it, but it'll be simple, and I really want to leave this area of the frame open. But if I would have just cut this mount off and made a whole new mount 3 inches higher, let's see if I can get a better angle here. If I'd have, started from scratch and built a mount 3 inches higher, and there would have been plates that would have tied it into the frame from here all the way down to here. Now these ones wouldn't have been a problem running up to there, but like I said, I want to keep this area of the frame open because I don't know yet what I'm going to have to do for a radiator. So I want to keep my options open and keep as much room in here as possible, so I don't want plates and gussets and whatnot taking up that room. Yeah, what I'm probably just going to do is find a piece of round tubing or square or something. I'll clean up all this rust and just make a 3-inch riser. And you might be thinking, well, that's the same as a lift block, and you're kind of right but kind of wrong, because this will actually be welded solid to this mount, so it won't be able to rock around. And yeah, like I said, it won't be the absolute strongest or the most visually appealing, but I think it'll do. And honestly, I'm probably going to do it with that side too, just to, like I said, to keep the frame open. Haven't decided yet. I could do the same thing with these second row of mounts, because I don't have anything that I can potentially see that needs to take up the space in the frame. But if you've been watching my videos, you've seen my buggies, and they started out as early Broncos too. And they just ended up getting wrecked, rolled, and rusted enough that I just ended up making them into buggies. And I could see I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this one, but if it does, it would be nice to have that room above the frame here to maybe run coolant lines to a rear radiator or something. I'm gonna go find some metal, see what I can do here. Here go rain! Alright, let's see what I need to make this work. Looks like, I don't know, something about 3 inches, maybe a little less. Let's go on out to the steel rack, see what I can find. see. No, I don't see anything in there that looks big enough. That's 3.5, too big. It's the right measurement. Oh my God, that's just way too thick though. What's this thing here? That's a little more than 3. I don't see anything else, so that's probably gonna have to do. Yeah, I think that ought to work. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a hole saw to cut these out. Not one that's in good shape anyway. I tried one and had to, yeah, it wouldn't do nothing. So I had to cut it out with the grinder and then grind it down to fit. There it is right there. I kind of just did one as a preliminary, just to see if I needed to change my tactics on how I was doing it. Let me shrink this down. This is all done. It's welded on the inside. You can't see it, but I've got it all figured out what position it needs to be in to have it leveled up. And this is all right. It's the sized right for the body mount bushing. About the only thing really left to do other than to weld it down is obviously I'm going to have to open this hole up so I can get the bushing, the bottom side of the bushing up through it. So the second two are welded in solid. Now for the front two, I'm going to use pretty much the same technique. I've already got the mount made, but the passenger side here, as you can see, I only have it tack welded in 3 spots, and I'm going to leave it that way until I get the body on. That way, in case I have to make some adjustments to it, hopefully those will be okay without making adjustments. If I do have to pull the body off and make adjustments because something doesn't line up, I'll probably just have to take the die grinder and open up this hole a little bit to shift the body bushing around a little bit. And incidentally, I've found out already that the bottom bushing that will come up inside the pipe there, because of the bead of weld that I have in there, it wouldn't quite seat, so yeah, I had to bevel these bushings down. I'll have to do that just for the front 4. Not a big deal, but The driver's side, because I have really hardly any frame of reference to even try to get it centered, I'm not even going to put that in until the body's on there. And yeah, if all the other body mounts work out okay and everything's lined up good, I'll just bolt the bushing and the riser to the body, and then yeah, wherever it ends up sitting comfortably there, I'll burn it down there. Because there should be plenty of room to get in here with the body picked up 3 inches off the frame. I already checked my snowplow Bronco, looking at it. Yeah, with an extra 3 inches of room between the frame and the body, there should be plenty of room to get in there and weld that. Now, time to move on to the rear two mounts. Of course, I got to get the old bushings out. I don't know how rusty that frame is going to be underneath there. Initially, I was going to use these two, or at least one of these pieces from an old Bronco frame and cut a section out of it and just weld it on there. You know, cut it down to 3 inches, but I'm kind of been saving those over the years for another potential project, which I'll probably never get to, but anyway, I cut some chunks out of that Explorer frame before it got dark, and I'm going to go ahead and try to use those. Another thing, I know I was talking about how this wasn't really the way I wanted to do it, but I'm not feeling bad about it, and you could make a valid argument that the mount is actually stronger than it was because of I've gotten into the good solid part of the mount here and got away from it where it was all rusted out and thin there. But I don't know, that's all semantics now. It is what it is. That's pretty much what I expected to find underneath those bushings. Alright, here's what's going to be the first piece of the puzzle. Once that's welded in place, I'll go cut another one out. And it won't come down as low as this side, but it'll, because I want to, these two holes here are for the upper gas tank mount, I guess you'd call it. And I want to be able to keep that even though I'm not sure if I'll ever run a rear tank again on this or what, but I still want to have that option. So it'll probably only come to right there. And of course, before I put that in, I'll have to trim this flange down to make both of them match up. And then I'm going to patch this hole in too in the process. And I'll tie this, the patch that I put here, I'll be able to tie it into both sides. There's the other half, and once I get that all welded together, I will slip a plate in here, weld it on each end, and then get in there and weld it as best I can along there. But right now there's something wrong with my welder. Apparently there's a loose connection in here somewhere. I can get it to work sometimes, sometimes not. So I need to figure out how to tear that open and find out what's loose in there. It's always something, isn't it? Hey, it's finally done. And so's this side. I guess they're not completely done. I gotta mark for the hole here and drill it out. It's getting late. I'm very tired and I'm making mistakes, but so far nothing that hasn't been insurmountable. Gonna pull the 33s off of the old Sport Track here, seeing as how I haven't driven this thing on the road for, geez, it's probably been 3 years. I've kept the license on it, but I dropped the insurance, and well, just we'll use these tires on the Bronco, get some use out of them. So obviously things never go quite as smooth as you think they will. I wanted to have this body back on the frame like a week ago, but you know how it is. There's always, well, mostly it was those headers, trying to decide what to do with those and other little things. A couple days ago, had the body picked up, thought I was ready to put it down on the frame, but while I had it picked up, thought, oh, I should check out these body mounts on the body itself. Yep, big problem. Let's see here. The two rearmost, that ain't gonna pick it up very well, is it? There you go. Yeah, both of them are pretty much like that. The rest of the mounts on the body are pretty good, except for the driver's very front. It's a little, I don't think it's not as bad. It's bad enough. It's something that needs to be done with it. It's just going to be easier to do. I think what I'm going to do is just cut all this out, and then I'll put the body on the frame, because this mount is the one that corresponds to the one that was really rusted out on the frame, and I don't have the lift block welded to the frame yet. So I'll just take the opportunity to cut all this rust out, sit it on the frame, and it shouldn't be too hard to rebuild it once it's in place. And that way I can align it with the block properly, or halfway decently anyway. But anyway, I'm going to get to work today. Hopefully I can get this thing sitting on the frame by the end of the day. Okay, so there's what we're dealing with. I'm going to do things a little differently than this was originally. I don't have the skills or the tools. Let me get here. There we go. To rebuild these mounts the way they were. And this one here, the hole is pretty much rusted through. What I'm going to do, like here's the remnants from the one side. Anyway, what I'm going to do is just cut a plate that will bridge this channel right below that original body mount, and I won't use that body mount hole at all. Before I weld the plate on, I'll have a hole drilled in it, and I've already determined that on the frame I'll be able to work the bolt down through the frame half of the mount, and it'll bring up in here, and then I'll leave the sides here open where I can get a wrench in there and tighten it down, so it won't actually be. Because before this had like a sheet metal sleeve built in here, and it was all boxed in, but that won't be a concern because I will not be pulling down on this sheet metal at all. Like I said, there'll just be a plate here, and that plate will bolt the body down. Should be nice and simple. I think it's kind of thin here in a couple spots, but I think there's enough metal there I can weld the plate there and bridge that channel and use that for a mount, and it'll be just fine. Okay, so here's the finished product. Well, no, it's not welded yet. Just showing it before I welded it. Had some leftover pieces of that Explorer frame. I'm going to use that. The only thing the bolt's doing right now is holding it in place while I weld it. And hopefully, because I'm using the original bolt hole from the upper floor, that's doing at least a half-arsed job of keeping the new mounting hole aligned. So I'm going to get to welding it and get on to the other one. Alright, there it is, pretty much the finished project. Took quite a bit of finagling with some ratchet straps and everything to get the back 6 mounts all lined up. Some of them were misaligned, but I managed to get them all in. Didn't have to pull the body back off and make any alterations. The biggest issue is the passenger front. If I can get down in there and see it, I don't think it's going to show it. But anyway, it's off quite a bit. So yeah, I'll be grinding off those tack welds and moving that one. And this one I have to actually rebuild that mount, but it looks like it ought to come out in a good spot. But yeah, pretty happy with it. It is a hot one out here today. The only thing that's saving my butt, there's a pretty good wind going. So with that in mind, I've got this all done as much as I can do outside. I'll get it pushed back in the shop. And today is 4th of July, and here I am at home doing work. There's a carnival going on in town. I think it's a celebration of finally getting this body back on. I'm going to get this in the shop, head on into town, maybe go up to the carnival, get me some ice cream, maybe a funnel cake. Bronco's back inside. I must sadly say I didn't get my funnel cake. I didn't feel like standing in line in that heat. Anyway, I started cleaning up the inside of the engine compartment a little bit, hooking a few things up, a little bit of wiring, cleaning up a bunch of extra wiring that didn't need to be there. Got my genuine Motorcraft 1973 brain box in there. I don't know, a lot of people don't like these Duraspark ignitions, but boy, they've sure treated me well over the years. I can't say I've never had one fail, but overall I'm real happy with them. Anyway, in order to get the hood to fit properly, I have it shifted all the way as far as I can push it that way, which isn't much. Or wait a minute, it was the other way. Yeah, so I needed to push the front clip this way, so I got a ratchet strap holding it, and I'm starting to reconstruct this rusted out mount here. I got it all cut out. I think I'm going to see what I got left out there for scraps of that Explorer frame to see what I can do with it. So here's the first piece of the puzzle. See if I can show you how it's going to work. It's going to fit in there like pretty much like so, and then once that's welded in, I'm going to make another plate that will tie into the bottom of that one and move up into this brace here. Additionally, I did find the registration for this. It was last registered in 2000. So yeah, this thing's been off the road for 22 years. And piece number 2 fits in pretty much like that. Get some light on it here. There's the finished result. I don't want to zoom in on it too much because I don't want you to see my horrible, horrible welds. I did end up welding the blocks to the original perches. Those welds aren't that great either. They'll hold, but man, yeah, I need to see into getting some glasses because it's really affected my welding skills. Anyway, the only things left, I would say the body lift's pretty much done other than, let's see, the shifter here, it's going to need shifter holder, it's going to need a little trimming. As you can see, like I said, there's plenty of room there to let hot air out. And the header on this side didn't really get close to the floor anyway, but on the passenger side it would have. It would have been cooking that floor. Let's see if I can get in there a little more. There. I mean, there's like, what, 3 inches there, so that header would have been practically touching that floor without the body lift. Let's see if I can show you looking in there, all kinds of room to work. Not that you really ever need to work in there, but it gives you an idea of how much room there is to get in there and work up in the transfer case area. Yeah, it's kind of too dark, but yeah, you can get in there and pretty much access anything now. The only major things I have to do yet that are related to this body lift, I'll have to extend the shifter linkage from here down to the transmission. And I don't know if the slip shaft that runs from the steering column to the steering box, if it's going to have enough play in it. But right now I'm looking for, I believe what I need is a 78 or 79 steering column from a full-size Ford truck. I think I can make a 2 or 4-wheel drive work, but it does have to be automatic for the shifter. I don't have one around here. The reason I want to do that is so it'll fit this wheel better, and the cancel for the turn signals will work better, and the horn and all that. So I'm going to a big swap meet here in Wisconsin in a couple of days. So I'll keep my eyes peeled for one of those. Maybe take a measurement, see what I can find for radiators. I need a lap belt for the passenger side, maybe some mechanical gauges, and yeah, who knows what else. It's supposed to be a really big swap meet. So I'm going to call the body lift done. So that's going to wrap up this episode, and I don't need to tell you because you probably remember it. Go out there, find yourself a project, and have some fun with it. Thanks for watching.